the thing that ultimately determines how a buyer feels about that car, even if it's been recalled, is the experience that they get at
Absolutely.
their local dealership.
Welcome back to Car-Pinionated, our weekly show on cars, the car industry, and driving in general. I'm Doug Stewart, digital executive producer for Fox 61 in Hartford. And this is my friend Jeff Buckholz, car enthusiast and writer and editor at WBBM in Chicago. Um, Jeff, the fine folks at Ford have a lot going on with their
Yes.
recalls. Um, to set the table, as it were, they have issued more safety recalls in 2025 than any other car company has in a full calendar year, and just in the first half of the year. And I think that people hear recall and they think, "Oh, this is terrible. We're all going to die." Um, and it's not always that bad. So I was looking at an article on cars.com, and but they're big recalls, right?
Yeah, they are.
Um, and so what do you think is going on here, and how should the consumer see this?
I think, first of all, Ford's history with recalls is long and storied, unfortunately, dating back to, well, I mean, there were, I mean, I'm old enough to remember, and you might be as well. The Ford ignition interlock issues of like the early to mid 70s. This would, I think, even predate the sort of infamous recall of the Pintos to upgrade the fuel cell. The It's not uncommon for a car in the first couple of years, a particular line to face some recalls. But indeed, this has been happening at Ford quite a bit. And I think it's having lived through, I think, 6 or 7 recalls and service bulletins with the 2013 Escape I used to drive. They are, of course, a 24 karat gold plated pain in the ass. But the thing that the thing that ultimately determines how a buyer feels about that car, even if it's been recalled, is the experience that they get at
Absolutely.
their local dealership. If I get the postcard in the mail and um, I call up the Al Yankovic Ford. Do they have the parts in stock? Will I be able to get the car in? Can they give me a loaner? Is there coffee in the waiting room? That's the sort of thing that ultimately determines it. The I mean, Ford's had a lot of recalls. The other car makers have not been immune either.
True.
And I think it's particularly the Detroit car makers, and there, but for the grace of God, go they, probably is what they're thinking, because very easily some of those could have been, um, you know, could have been. I think if I'm willing to bet that if you crunched number of recalls versus, divided by number of cars sold, Stellantis might actually be on top. Uh, but the it really is kind of a problem for Ford. It's been a problem for Ford for a while. Um, Even in the quality is job one years back in the mid 80s, when it seemed like they were kind of getting their crap together. But it is, I certainly don't, when people are talking to me and they may ask, for recommendations about cars. I don't typically talk about recalls, in that. I don't factor that in. It's like,
Yeah.
is it a good car? Is it a good value? Does it drive well? And that kind of thing. I don't really think about recalls that much. Maybe I should. I don't know. Because I sort of feel like, as we've seen, With Toyota, for instance, the the sort of high standard for quality at Toyota, even they had to recall tens of thousands of, was it V8s and like pickup trucks because they were machined badly. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
sometimes, you're building 12, 13 million vehicles a year. You're gonna get a few that are not gonna be great. But you're right. They're not all of these recalls are, the steering wheel might detach from the steering column, which could lead to a loss of
Right.
control.
Right.
It's it's more on the order of, oops, this has peanuts in it and we forgot to label it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Very true. Very true. The top five this year have been rear view camera issue, which certainly doesn't stop the car from working. Uh,
No,
fuel pumps, yeah, that's
that's a
bad.
problem.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Fire risk again, bad.
Not
Uh,
great.
detached door trim, uh,
Okay.
loss of power for brake assist, bad. There was a
Not great.
number of them. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
the top five.
Yeah.
Now, what Ford is saying is that they've increased their systems testing, and they're as well as the number of people who are looking at this stuff. Okay, we're going to take them at their
It-
word for that.
sure. Fine.
And you can't solve quality control issues if you don't have people spending time looking for quality control issues. So
Correct.
are you going to go through a cycle of right now we're paying a bunch of attention to it, so it's going to be more prevalent. Um,
Right.
and I think you're right. And I go back to, and I've said this numerous times, long time ago interviewed a astronaut for the who was in the space shuttle program.
Mhm.
And it was during a period of time where there were a lot of scrubbed launches. NASA had
Ah,
scrubbed a lot of launches. And one of and we asked him about this, and he said if they've scrubbed the launch, that means they've found something wrong and they're going to fix it. And I would rather there be somebody aware of the problem and trying to fix it than having, a problem up in space.
right.
Fair
Sure.
statement. Um, I think you're right. How they manage that process of, you know, getting to the deal trip. And dealers will tell you that they view that as an opportunity. If they play their cards right, they make that a seamless process. They get it done, and oh look, see what's in the showroom. Why you
Hmm.
could be driving that new you know
Yeah.
whatever. So it's a good thing for them, and they can look at it as an opportunity.
Yes.
So I agree. It's not what I don't judge a company by its recalls. I guess I kind of judge it by I'm when I read more into this and I thought about what their process was. It did impress me that this was kind of like how they're figuring this stuff out. That's good.
And
And
if maybe it also means that they're being more responsive to customer concerns because recalls happen as a result of someone coming in and saying, "Hey, it's making this weird noise," or, "Oh my heavens, my rear view camera doesn't work. Whatever shall I do?"
yeah, right, right,
So maybe that's, and if that's improving, if they're being more responsive to customer complaints, then that's also good.
right, right. Why don't we take a break here and we will come back and talk some more. And we're back. So I wanted to talk to you, Jeff, about Ford ending production of their Escape and the Lincoln Corsair, which is their compact SUV for Lincoln and Ford, respectively. Um, what they're doing, they say they have enough to sell for the next 6 8 months, whatever, which I would hazard a guess is probably not the way the manufacturing people want to have it, that they have this big
No.
excess. Um, but they're still selling every Bronco Sport they make, and they're happy to do so because it's a little bit of a premium from the Escape. Um, Not obviously quite as much as the Corsair. Um, but the Edmunds points out that the Ford Escape was the second best-selling Ford SUV for 2024, which I was not aware of. Um,
Hmm.
so what they're doing is they'll build these in the Louisville assembly plant. And Glenn and I talked a couple weeks ago about what they're doing at the Louisville facility to thumbnail it. Uh, they're they're they want to build a new battery electric platform that will underpin a whole series of vehicles, be very adaptive, very modular, not only in its construction but its assembly process. And your thoughts on this changeover to eliminate the Escape and the Corsair, and how what that kind of means going forward?
First of all, I want to pour one out for the Escape, um, which has been a solid car for the Ford Motor Company since it was introduced,
Yeah.
way back in the day when it was basically a Mazda platform. And those first generation plus facelift Escapes, the kind of boxy ones, they were actually great cars. And I still see a lot more of them than one would think one should on the streets here. A lot of them were taxi cabs. The hybrids were pioneers at that point because
Mhm.
they were using the Toyota hybrid system under license. And they were really efficient. They were really well built. They're incredibly durable and pretty reliable from what I can recall. And the second generation was essentially a focus on stilts. And the focus, we may have talked about this in the past. The the 2010 generation Ford Focus was one of the finest small cars of this century, if you bought it with a manual transmission. The Escape pretty much drove like a kind of a tippy Focus, but it was great. I've had two of them. I drove a very early build 2013 in that great deep impact blue that they
Mhm.
showed a lot of them in that year. And then my husband and I have a 2019. So I bookended that particular generation. Uh, Really a great car, super comfortable, really versatile, and a decent platform for the Lincoln version. Friends of ours have the Corsair. Boy, that's a nice car. It's a really nice place to spend time. Lincoln has really, Lincoln does a great job with interiors generally, and it's really, really nice. It's it's a shame that they have to get rid of the Escape and Corsair in order to do what they're doing. And more power to Jim Farley and everybody at Ford for moving forward with this in the face of what must be waking up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat level of anxiety over what on earth is going to happen and can we even build this and will people buy it? Good for them for sticking to their guns. Um, I'm sure that Bill Ford Jr. is a big influence there. He was famous for dailying an electric Ford Ranger in the 90s when
Yeah.
he was just kind of becoming the chairman of the company. Um, and it's too bad that the Escape has to go away in order to make this other thing happen. It has been a rock solid performer for that company. But as you point out, not only the Bronco Sport, but the Maverick also, you know,
True.
uh,
True.
are basically living on with the Escape's bones, and they're selling pretty much every one they could make. My mother went from an Escape, a 20, I think she had a 2020 or a 2021 Escape. She just got into a Bronco Sport, and she's thrilled.
Mhm.
I don't have the heart to tell her it's the same car. but but it's she loves it. It's great. It's that dark green color that they're showing lately. I think the world should have more green cars, honestly. The but it's there's that platform is still going to serve that company well for many, many years. And from a Lincoln standpoint, it's not bad to have a lineup that is at least somewhat different from the Ford lineup.
Mm.
So it's
Right,
probably
because
just as well.
the the Nautilus
Does
shared a
not have a
platform.
Ford does not have a Ford equivalent.
Yeah, I just realized that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That it used to be the Nautilus was the MKX, which was the Ford Edge, and of course the Edge is gone, and now the Nautilus is brought in from China. And I don't think it's the same platform. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I mean that's a bummer, but it's a huge undertaking for Ford and a great investment in a plant that has done extremely well for Ford, and it's been extremely productive over the years. I mean, they've built Escapes and the Lincoln equivalents and the Mazda equivalents and the Mercury equivalents, um, and they built F-150s for a very long time before all of that production got moved up to Rouge. Um, yeah, it is, if you've not been to Northern Kentucky, that plant is giant.
Yeah.
It is huge.
Right. I
So,
I
yeah.
think that's something that us Easterners don't understand is how big a plant can be. You
Oh,
know, I've there used to be a plant in Edison, New Jersey, where they made escorts. I remember touring it when they made escorts, but at some point they made Mustangs there,
mhm.
and the Northeast plants are long gone, long
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when you drive by the Subaru plant in Lafayette and
Hmm.
or the Chrysler facilities outside of St. Louis, um,
Right.
there's Stellantis facilities, but just immense,
Yeah.
acres and acres and acres.
Mhm.
Um, and I watched. I've said this a couple times. I watched this um, press conference about the Louisville facility, and I thought I was in a time machine. Like we're putting in, I don't remember, 5 million, $3 billion, whatever it was, a lot of money into this thing that starts basically, from blank, from nothing in terms of how we're going to build this car, what it's going to look like, how it's what it's going to be, and they called it their Model T moment. Like, and
Hmm.
good for them. And when you think about it, like they're doing that. Uh, the the Michigan Central, right? The
Hmm.
train station,
Their innovation center, right.
which is amazing. Uh,
Showplace.
and then they're moving their headquarters across the street,
Yeah, yeah.
and combining everything in one facility.
Hmm.
Good on them.
Hmm.
You
Yep.
know, a car company like, you know, General Motors just kind of banking its money, it seems like. We'll bring out new this and that, but we'll bank our money. Stellantis, we don't need to say anything else.
Yeah.
But Ford's putting their money where their mouth is.
Hmm.
I think in a big way, in
Hmm.
in it talking an urban core way, thinking future. I think it's good. I think it's good for them.
Hmm.
Here's the thing, because when I was looking around for other things for a future episode, um, Ford doesn't make any cheap cars anymore. And I guess I knew that, but
Not really.
Yeah, I mean that when your least expensive vehicle is a stripped Maverick for nearly $30,000.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
where
And they're selling all of them.
yeah.
Like, yeah. And let's remember too, I mean, yes, it's a low option vehicle. Steelies,
Mhm.
a pretty limited selection of color. The upholstery's not, it isn't high end or whatever. But let's remember that even a stripped car now has air conditioning, power windows, power locks, keyless entry, all of the stuff you had to pay extra for
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
So all of these cars are very well equipped now.
Right.
There's kind of not a stripper car in the bunch unless, you know, um, I guess. I mean, most uh, in the parlance of the moment, the equipment level on a base model anything would put a Victorian child in a coma. Just the level of opulence in
I,
even the dullest Hyundai Elantra would, give anybody in Downton Abbey a stroke.
right.
Let's be real about this.
I
So these
yeah.
are fully equipped cars and they are selling for what the market will bear, I guess. But you're right, there's not a lot of rubber floor mat specials anymore. I mean the Chevy Trax is 22,000, 21,
Right.
22.
Right. And that's like Chevy, has really worked hard to build value at that low end of the market, you
Yes.
know. And and then we've talked about GM, one of their things is creating that value part of
Hmm.
because it used to be that Chevy Trax was kind of, I felt it was an embarrassing car till, I wouldn't want to drive it. But the current one, sure, it's a reasonable low end experience, I
It's a
think.
good, yeah, I think and I think I'll be interested to see what some of the reports come back after, 2 or 3 years. But you know what? It looks good. It's well equipped. It's priced pretty much in the sweet spot.
Yeah,
Yeah, not embarrassing at all.
yeah. And I will, Glenn would mention at this point his Encore GX.
I was wondering how long it would take you to mention the Buick Encore GX.
Yes. But I think you know, I drove the first Maverick that I had driven a couple months ago, and I was really impressed with it. I really liked
Mhm.
it. It is an inexpensive interior, but you don't feel it
Right.
necessarily. And
It's
it's got
clever. It's clever and it's well designed
yes,
and utile.
yes, right, and that and it just amazes me when you think about how long we had to wait for something as simple as decent cup holders. You
I
know,
know.
like how hard was that to figure out?
I know. I know. The
Or,
water bottle storage in the door is like the killer app on that car, I think. Like
right,
that's wild. That's
right.
that's amazing.
Or steps in the cutout steps in the corner of the bumpers on GMs,
Yeah.
or lockable tailgates. Like, why was that so hard to figure
It-
out for people?
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
Mm.
Do Was there anything else we needed to hit in this? I don't think so. All right.
Just that if you want a pretty decent small SUV, run, don't walk to your Ford store. The Escape, the Escape is a pretty decent car
Yeah, I would.
still.
Yep. Yep. And I think I can't say that any of the generations are bad looking cars. They're very different from each
Mhm.
other, but
Correct.
they do they? I think you're absolutely okay. So it was the Escape, the Tribute, and the Mariner.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'll take useless automotive knowledge for.
You have control of the board, Doug. Select.
All right. Uh, we're gonna we're gonna take off from here, land the plane, dock the boat, whatever we want to talk about. Um, the fine folks at shout out to the fine folks at WVEC in Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Let's go
W
Hokies. I don't know if Virginia Tech is there. I just like the Hokies. Go
No, I
Hokies.
think they're farther in.
That's all right.
That's close enough. Uh, WGRZ in Chicago. No, it's not Chicago. It's Buffalo, another
Buffalo.
big
The
city.
weather, the weather's very similar
Right.
in the wintertime, but two very different places.
And the fine folks at Fox 43 in Harrisburg who run our little show here. You can also see old episodes on YouTube in the the Car-Pinionated playlist, where you can like and subscribe, and that helps out the little algorithm, so it does everyone happy things. And with that, we will see you next time.
Good night, Fairfield County, wherever you are.